my name is Greg Salazar and this is my car channel. I'm gonna stick with the name Salazar's Cars for now. Sorta kinda rhymes, although I do have a bad habit of changing YouTube channel names every now and then. My goal here is gonna be to document anything and everything related to cars. I buy and sell them quite a bit. I lose a lot of money usually in the process. I also tinker with cars and fix them every now and then. Usually you can save, several $1,000s if you fix and diagnose yourself, and we already do that on my main channel, Greg Salazar, with computers. We fix computers all the time, and cars are just kind of sort of bigger computers. They're more mechanical than computers nowadays, but that is what I love so much about them. I can really get my hands dirty working on a car, and the first one that I want to introduce you in this very first video on the channel is definitely gonna require some dirty hands.
A bit of backstory then. My first ever car purchase, the first I ever spent my own money on, was a 2011 Audi S5 with the 4.2 liter V8 and automatic transmission. At the time, it was a lot of money for me, almost everything I had saved up while working in college, and I loved it. We modified the front grille, fitted an epic Army Tricks exhaust, and drove that thing literally everywhere. I loved it so much, in fact, that I eventually bought another one and did pretty much the same thing to it. But I'd never owned an S5 with a 3-liter supercharged V6, an engine Chris Harris made famous by proving that a simple tune could make it faster in a straight line than its bigger brother RS counterpart. A car which was faster on paper but wasn't as tunable thanks to its natural aspiration. I cannot tell you how many times I've watched this video. My wife had a Q7 with this engine, but the platform made it pretty much untunable, something I didn't know at the time, so I told myself that I'd eventually own either an S4 sedan or S5 coupe with this power plant. But with one extra caveat. It needed to be a manual, and as it turns out, these are pretty rare. We don't have official production numbers for the total number of imported manuals versus autos, but in the B8.5's case, the facelifted version especially, the standard dual clutch transmission was a fan favorite, making a sight like this few and far between. But okay, there's one more caveat with this one. It's been crash damaged. I've never bought anything from Copart before, but the thought of owning this combo and in the great Daytona gray color, just like my first one, was too tempting to ignore. And by the time the auction went live, I was the highest bidder, so you can bid on these cars before the auction actually starts, and you can sort of set the price floor for what to expect by the time the car hits the block. I was around $1,500 at the time. I fought with folks from all over the country, but eventually I won the lot for just under $3 grand, what I thought was a solid deal at the time, and we'll find out later if that actually was the case. According to Copart, the car both ran and moved under its own power, so it's possible what we're looking at here is merely radiator and crash bar damage. Swap in some headlights, fenders, and a hood, and she could be as good as new. At least, again, that's what I'd hoped.
Bonus time! Sold on approval.
And then, delivery day came. It actually runs. Now I'm checking coolant temps because I don't know if we have any coolant in this car. I probably shouldn't be doing this. But it actually runs and drives. It's pretty smooth. I'm in second right now, and it doesn't have any problems at all. I don't want to stop it. I'm just gonna roll up to the house, which is right there. So yeah, I noticed a few issues with the supercharger. A couple belts aren't looking the greatest, but this is a good start.
Get a load of this then. It drove into the garage, which I was not really expecting. It actually has coolant in it, which I'll show you as well, although it's quite low. It probably wouldn't last very long. I'm not sure if we have any holes in the radiator lines or anything. The radiator itself might have several holes in it. It is definitely a bit bent, to say the least. This thing was definitely in some sort of front-end collision. It looks like the driver of this car might have rear-ended somebody else, and unfortunately this is what happens to sedans and coupes that are pretty low. If they hit, let's say, like an SUV or something, the hood tends to buckle, which is definitely what happened here. This hood is completely trashed. It will most certainly be replaced. Yeah, this is the top half of what would have been the grille, and surprisingly, the S5 badge is intact. We're definitely gonna save that. That's pretty cool. The fog light area, completely trashed. It looks like, yeah, the driver's side fog light is intact. We might be able to save that one. You can see our crash bar is totally out of whack, but it did its job. It absorbed much of the impact. It's definitely gonna be a ton of fun stripping this car down. I've never done it before. I've never rebuilt a crash damaged car. I've just watched plenty of rebuilds on YouTube, so here I am trying to do that myself. There's gonna be a lot to learn. I'm gonna make mistakes. You guys are gonna come along for the ride and scream at me in the comments like you usually do. It's totally cool. I welcome that. It's gonna be a really interesting learning experience for myself. The fact that this is a 6-speed manual is huge. It is pretty rare for a B8.5 to have a 6-speed manual, and the fact that this is a 2015 means it's one of the last model years it was even an option for Audi. You can see along this weather stripping, or it's more like trim actually running along the top of the door, this sort of like gooey stuff, and that's actually from the tape that they used to attempt to seal the opening. The window was lowered on the driver's side, unfortunately, and I believe this car was sitting in a Copart lot for like 3 months. And yeah, so you know what that means. Water ingress, and the interior smells like a bag of wet trash. So definitely mold growing. You can see that 6-speed manual, which is just beautiful. It's actually a really great spec. Comes with the sports seats, has Alcantara. The door trim, yeah, that's probably from water. This is basically going to require full disassembly to properly clean. There's a lot of mold in here. Again, it smells awful. You can see the back seats. They actually look good. The seats for the age, like there's over 130,000 miles on this car. The seats are not like super cracked or anything. Super surprising there. The center console, the dash, everything works. Everything lights up when we give it power. I have of course, a jumper pack to get the electronics working, but I'm going to keep the windows closed because I don't want my garage smelling like, again, wet trash. So yeah, just wanted to let you know that you also have a full deep cleaning of the interior to look forward to in this playlist. The brakes, oh yeah, the brakes, these are gonna have to be completely replaced. The rotors are super rusted up. They are not smooth by any means. It definitely doesn't drive smooth. It doesn't brake smooth. I think there's air in the lines as well. Gonna have to replace the rotors and the pads. Hopefully not the calipers. We'll check all of that when the time comes. I've got to say though, from the doors back, the car looks super clean. There is a small bit of rust on the passenger side here. I don't see it anywhere else, and I don't see any weird paint bubbling or anything elsewhere. So hopefully that hasn't spread. Shouldn't be too difficult to fix. Around the back, I will say the taillights look really good. Those we're gonna keep. I don't see a reason to replace them. Same on the driver's side, it looks really good. The exhaust is pretty disgusting, but it's stock, so that's nice. You probably noticed the APR intake under the hood. I was worried about this car being heavily modified because I like the OEM Plus look, but those look to be the stock tips at the very least. The glass looks good, rear glass, of course the sides, even the front windshield looks good. A bit of pitting, maybe some scratching, but nothing too deep, and I don't see any cracks either. Get a load of that supercharger pulley in there. You can see this is super loose. It's just flopping around. When the car starts, this doesn't do anything, so we're definitely not getting boost, which isn't a big deal right now. At least it runs and drives. And if you're curious, the amount of coolant we have in here, yes, it still has some, although it's below the minimum level. Yeah, there we go. There's coolant, so you don't have at least major leaks on the radiator side of things. So there you have it then, a car that, well, looks pretty rough on the outside, but I don't think is gonna be too difficult to tackle for our first ever car rebuild. It does have a branded title that is already in hand. I bought it from Ohio, so we'll have to get this car up to the traffic standards of the state of Florida where I live, and then retitle it. I have no idea how to do that because I've never done it before. I don't even know if retitle is the right phrase or word to use, but we're gonna roll with it for now. The next thing to do is start stripping everything that definitely needs to be replaced, starting with the bumper, radiator, brackets, headlights, and miscellaneous stuff in between. But actually, first things first, I want to pop the trunk because that's where the battery is. Eventually I'm going to replace the battery anyway. Might as well make that easier on myself now. We can keep it disconnected when we aren't using it, but I'd like to not have to reconnect this every single time. Let's go ahead and get our trusty jumper here. This is the Type S portable starter connected, and then we'll just hold this button down. Yep, so we've got power, and let's pop the trunk. Oh boy, does it smell ripe in here as well. I was hoping this didn't get a lot of water, but I think most of it is seeping through the rear seats. Got some panels in here as well. Looks like the battery was accessed at some point. But yeah, we're gonna have to take it out, and that is below where the spare tire would usually sit. Also looks like at one point, one of the owners was a golfer. This is the cover for the spare as well as the jack kit. Got some carpets that don't look too bad. Looks like these were taken out maybe before most of the water got in. Here is the spare. More carpets. And yeah, just a bunch of trash. Let's see, so the battery actually should be exposed. Yep, there it is. And you know what? Did they save our battery for us? I wonder if this is actually okay. Depends on when this was disconnected. Slide this entire carpet section out. In order to connect the positive terminal, I've got to remove this metal bracket holding the entire battery down. We'll have to remove this anyway if we're going to replace. It's a 14 mil. Nope, it's a 13 mil. Remember, with Audis, it's the metric system as nature intended. Yepers, that's a 13. And out she comes. Also, yes, you probably noticed the positive lead was disconnected instead of the negative. Typically you disconnect this one first, just safer. It's not the end of the world if you're very careful, but I think I'm gonna swap these around, reconnect positive first, and then we'll connect the negative since we have to tighten this little nut here. Helping hand from our rubber mallet. Keep that seated on the terminal. And then let's just see, we're gonna leave this temporarily on. Yeah. We have power to the car. I can hear the electronics whirring. That's impressive. I think the battery was saved, which will save me like $100 or $200. Batteries are expensive nowadays. Here's the big question though. Is it juiced enough to start the car? This is for all the marbles. It is. That's awesome. That's, yeah, that's gonna save us a couple hundreds. I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect the battery again for disassembly. I don't wanna risk it actually dying this time.
You know the routine by this point. We're gonna strip anything and everything damaged in that crash, starting first with the easy to reach peripherals like the aftermarket air intake, bumper, wheel liners, and headlights. Okay, the headlights might not be that easy to reach. And I won't lie, I really didn't know what I was doing here. I mean, obviously we have to lift the car up to remove the wheels in order to access the liners, but beyond this, I really had no idea how to remove certain things. I sort of just poked my way around the car a few times until I found applicable nuts and bolts, fastening body panels, and the sort. But I will say, if you're even remotely mechanically handy, you'll find your way quickly. Sort of like taking a large Lego car apart. It doesn't really matter how you do it as long as you aren't snapping pieces along the way. This wheel, by the way, was virtually glued to the hub, and you'll see in a follow-up clip the other wheel was as well. It took quite a bit of wiggling. Oh, and don't mind my awkward facial expressions throughout. I noticed that I make very cringe-worthy faces while loosening bolts and nuts. I don't know why. With the liners out, it did become much easier to remove things like the front bumper and headlights. Thankfully, a majority of the screws holding these in place are actually accessed through the wheel arches on both sides. So that's where the tensioner went. This applies pressure to the supercharger belt, ensuring we don't experience any slippage or interference with other areas of the front of this engine. Without this, we aren't getting any boost at all. This would also explain why the belt was so loose to begin with. Now it's time for the plumbing. We've got the heat exchanger, AC condenser, and radiator all on the same bracket, starting first with the heat exchanger up front. This is actually an aftermarket one, and I plan on replacing it with yet another aftermarket one to help with heat soak. By the way, I'd be lying if I said this part of the disassembly was a short ordeal. Fenders next, same deal, didn't really have to reference any manuals or forms, you just kind of gotta poke and prod, find nuts, find hidden bolts and areas, cracks and crevices of the car that you're probably not used to digging into if you haven't done this before. I imagine I will be heavily relying on this video, mind you, when it comes to reassembly in a few weeks. Remember kids, along the way, Ziploc bags are your best friends. Use them to sort your screws, nuts, and bolts. You will thank yourself later. A few hours later, and I finally managed to remove the radiator bracket, giving way to the front of the engine completely unhindered. So check this out. Here's where that tensioner broke off. No doubt from the collision. Thankfully, this looks to be the only noteworthy damage around the block. It's sort of attached to the block, but it's going to be very easy to remove with a triple square. The engine itself does appear unscathed, and the fact that it runs and drives already is a huge sigh of relief. I did notice a few other issues here and there, but we can discuss these a bit later. Thankfully, nothing major.
Whew. Yeah, we are 3 days deep now, and we've finally made it to the engine. The other than this one tensioner here, which clearly snapped off, I'm hoping that when I remove that bolt, that whole piece will come out. So I can replace that. It doesn't look like anything else around the block has been damaged, which is good. I didn't expect an impact like this. I mean, this is, you know, this is kind of it was a rough impact, but it wasn't like the guy was going 50 miles an hour or anything. I've seen those kinds of accidents. Usually pushes the engine back and you get all sorts of damage there. But I am surprised that, well, at least part of the engine, a little pulley or tensioner, was impacted. The rest of it seems okay. Now, the reason why the engine started is because this primary belt running from the alternator is still good. There's still good tension on this. I'm probably not even gonna replace that. So that's why, yeah, everything started up no problem. Obviously, we weren't getting any boost from the supercharger. That's something we'll have to tackle. But I figured we'll go ahead and end this segment of the video by sort of cleaning the engine bay. I think this is gonna look really good once it's all cleaned up. There is a bit of rust. I can definitely tell this was a northeastern car where lots of snow and salted roads accumulate. But I do think it's gonna clean up quite nicely. And one other area that has piqued my interest now that we can again see the entire front of the engine is this primary coolant line here running along the front. You can see it goes actually behind the water pump here. You take this off, the water pump's right behind it. But this is cracked. So if I pull this down, you can see that crack right there. That would be pretty catastrophic. Long term, if we didn't fix that, we'd be bleeding coolant. So I've ordered one of these. I've also ordered, so it's not here now because I pulled it off, but there was a connector right here. I showed some B-roll of it a bit earlier, but I have ordered a replacement for that, and that runs into the high pressure fuel pump. And you know, while I'm in here, which no car guy has ever heard before, we might as well replace the high pressure fuel pump. What's nice is that a lot of the parts for this car can be found very cheap on sites like eBay. So the car's old enough now, the platform's been around for so long, the engine's been around for so long, that it is relatively inexpensive to replace a lot of the stuff in here. Now, if I wanted to buy an entirely new engine from the ground up from Audi, somewhere in the realm of $15,000, which is 5 times more than we paid for this entire car. So that I hope I never have to do. I mean, it has a lot of miles on it, 130-ish thousand. So it could come to that at some point, but I think now, again, based on the fact that it has been running and shifts great, the transmission feels fine, I think we've got at least a few, 10, 20,000 miles left in her before it really starts rattling. And also, again, the fact that the previous owner, or well, one of the 3 previous owners, has installed APR gear, not just like a smaller pulley on the supercharger side, but also a crank pulley. Like this is a little harder to do. This is a little more hardcore. So, you know, someone that's just looking to slap on a cold air intake and a smaller pulley, that's what most would do in the situation like this. Maybe it has been maintained well because it has been so boosted over stock. I don't know. It could come back to haunt us. That was not something I could see from the listing on Copart, and so as a result, I'm kind of just having to roll with the punches here. Not a big deal that it's been heavily modified. Obviously, the dead giveaway was a cold air intake, but almost everyone that was a semi-car enthusiast who owned one of these, a B8.5
S4, S5, even like an SQ5. Almost everyone I knew put cold air intakes on these because you wanted to hear the supercharger one. It was an easier way to get that sound out without doing other heavy modifications. So I'm not going to hold it against the previous owner, obviously, but it could backfire eventually. Maybe we throw a rod or something under heavy boost one of these days. Of course, now that it's bright outside again, this is day 4, by the way, in case you're wondering. It took me that long to get to the engine. I took the time in previous clips to clean up a lot of the surface level dust and grime in the engine bay. So you can see that Daytona gray. I think this is metallic. I don't think it's Daytona gray pearl. I don't see any color phase changing or anything. So that's actually better, I think, for paint correction and for panel matching and blending. I don't know, I'm not a paint guy, but I would assume that just the metallic is easier to work with than the pearl. And this color is now starting to show again on these panels inside the engine bay. So that's cool. It's coming together. The block is also a bit cleaner. It's not totally perfect yet. I've got some stuff coming in that's going to get rid of a lot of the rust and grime, a lot of the salt buildup and stuff lower on the block. So hopefully we can get this looking better pretty soon without damaging anything. Again, the belts feel pretty good. Well, the belt that's on here still. This one feels pretty good. I might replace it anyway, just because, again, while I'm in here, like I told you, the water pump is going to be replaced. That's probably coming up in the next video. Also going to replace that high pressure fuel pump. I was thinking about also doing the PCV valve, but that requires taking off the supercharger. I don't think I have to take the supercharger off to replace the water pump. Actually, I do for the thermostat. So, okay, because I'm doing the water pump and the thermostat at the same time. This is a pretty common issue with the 3.0s. And I just want to take care of it now so that I don't have to take this back apart in the near future. Again, considering the miles, there's a lot that could go wrong in the near future. So yeah, that's kind of the current state of things. Obviously the front wheels are off. I've got a brake kit coming in, so we're going to do all 4 brake assemblies, and still got this piece over here. I was not able to get this last AC line off. It is like welded there. I don't know what they used. Maybe it just soldered it, but it would not come off. I chiseled it for over an hour. I'm not even joking when I say that. So I'll figure out how to get this off. Maybe I just end up replacing the whole line. Everything else, I'm hoping that I remember where all this goes. So I had a plan of like taking some painter's tape, wrapping it around each tube, and then labeling where each tube goes. The problem is that tape just falls off. These pipes are so grimy, there's nothing for the tape to stick to. So I'm just gonna have to wing it. We all know how that goes sometimes. And now comes the part of the video where I talk about how much money I just spent ordering things that, well, need to be ordered, because a lot of it was obviously crash damage. This list is fairly extensive, but I imagine that I've only ordered half of what I actually need, and I won't realize what else I need until the other stuff arrives and is installed, or at least I attempt to install it. So starting first, obviously we need a radiator bracket, we need a radiator, we need a heat exchanger for the supercharger. I've gone with actually a larger one than from factory. It does allow the supercharger to run cooler for longer, especially during more high intensive driving sessions. And I imagine this car went through a bit of that because of, again, the APR coil packs, the APR pulleys, and the intake. The other things I have ordered, the headlights, of course, we're going to need those. I have ordered the brake kit that I mentioned, of course, the high pressure fuel pump, the sensors attached to that, and a new accessory belt for the supercharger. In fact, just the APR serpentine belt, and I wanted to get the APR spec because, again, we have an APR crank pulley, and then we also have, I think, an APR supercharger pulley. I'm not sure why you would just do the crank pulley and not the supercharger pulley, so I got the belt that is spec'd for APR on both sides. That by itself was $62. I ordered a new front bumper grille fog lights. The bumper was over $1,000. That also includes a bit of the under tray. The fog lights were $102. The front right and front left fenders, surprisingly cheap. I thought these would be more expensive, about $200, $250 a pop. And these are actually primed, ready for paint already, so that's super cool. A front crash bar was more expensive than almost both of the fenders combined. Nearly $400 for a front crash bar.
That was more than I was expecting. The radiator support bracket was only 115 bucks again. That's gonna have to be assembled. Once all of those parts get here, we're gonna try to assemble all of that first and then mount it as one big unit to the frame. The radiator was $100, not too bad. The intake, now I didn't want to go with the stock intake because I want to hear some supercharged wine myself, was over $400. That's an IE intake. It does have the exposed filter. I could have chosen a carbon fiber cover, but that was an extra 300 bucks. We're kind of pinching pennies here at this point. I've got the entire hood latch assembly ordered, so not only the cable, but also the upper and lower parts of the latch. So we're gonna be replacing the one that was on the hood, which is totally bent out of shape. That for sure needed to be replaced. The lower section, which bolts to the radiator bracket, also was ordered. That was only combined about 50 or 60 bucks, not too bad. The radiator condenser fans, of course, the pair of those is coming in. The AC condenser by itself was $55. The headlights I mentioned earlier, $800, not too bad. I'm hoping that we can again recycle the xenon lamps and the modules for those. The radiator air ducting was surprisingly expensive. Those were $128 a piece. That's half the price of a fender just for some specially molded plastic that goes near the front of the car. I almost omitted those entirely, but I really want to bring this back to nearly stock. The headlamp supports. So for the headlights, they're basically these small frames that wrap around the bottoms of each and attach to the subframe of the car. Those were $65, not too bad. The brake rotor kit for a set of 4, that includes the rotors and the pads, 275 bucks. These are probably not gonna last very long. I will just say, I'm not gonna be doing heavy like track driving with this car anytime soon. So that's why I went with a cheap option. We're probably gonna have to upgrade that at some point. This was just something to put on the car that's better than, you know, the rusted stuff that we have now, because I will say the brakes felt interesting when I was driving this into the garage. So yeah, we're looking at roughly $4,000 for everything I just mentioned, give or take. I haven't actually taken a calculator out, but the credit card bill this month was not pretty. And that doesn't even include the hood, which is the one piece I am saving because I think I'm gonna have to order that direct from Audi. There are some listings for used Audi S5 hoods on eBay, but they almost always require, of course, freight shipping because of the size and the weight, and they require commercial addresses. I'm doing this out of my house. It's not a commercial address, and I don't want to bug a friend to take care of this. I think I can get it delivered to my local Audi dealer and then pick it up with my truck from there. Shouldn't be a big deal, but it's going to cost me about $1,500 bucks plus $300 in flat shipping. So that brings us to almost $6,000, and that's not including the wheels and tires, which I was hoping to replace as a full set of 4. I wanted to get tires fitted, maybe order something from Tire Rack, but I really wanted the OEM look. I was hoping to find some 2013 to 15 B8.5 RS5 wheels. I really like those. They look very similar to these, which are also OEM, I believe, but they're 20s instead of 19s. They fill out the wheel well a little more, just a cleaner fitment, and with some spacers, it's gonna look very, very nice. It's just near impossible to find a good used set now on eBay. And even if I did, it would surely cost me probably $2,000 or more. And given the fact that we're already again close to $5,500, $6,000, that's a lot of money. So say we stick with the original setup here, which again, I don't know if I should trust these tires. They don't look in all that great a shape. Definitely some dry rot. But let's just say we didn't replace these and we didn't have to buy anything else substantial. Our total investment into this car is about $12,000, including Copart fees and including the transport fee from Ohio, which to Florida was about $1,200. I'm not gonna lie, that's a pretty disappointing number. This, again, just comes with my lack of experience in this space. If I was building a computer, I would know I'd have everything nailed down like the back of my hand. It's just from doing it for over a decade. I know what's a good deal, what's not, and how much it's roughly going to cost to restore a computer back to working order and as close to OEM as possible, which again is just my personal preference. But when it comes to cars, and especially dealing with a site like Copart, which I thought was actually very easy to use for the first time. I had access to almost $100,000 of buying power after simply verifying my profile with an upload of my driver's license. That was pretty wild. I think like a $400 deposit or something you have to keep in the account and a credit card tied to it. Speaking of, I actually bought this car with the credit card, so I'll get some miles back. That's That's one upside here. But let's be honest, $12,000 all in for this car in this condition and with this mileage and with a salvage title is not exactly a great deal. The only reason I made an exception for this is because of the manual transmission. Now you could say, well Greg, there's plenty of manual S5s out there. I know you say it's rare, but if I wanted to buy one today, I honestly could, and it wouldn't cost me, you know, 50 grand or anything like that. You can find healthy examples for $20,000, $25,000, somewhere in that price range. Sure, 20, 25,000, but not 12,000. And frankly, I'd rather have a more used and abused car like this that I don't have to feel guilty about beating down the highway than a $20,000 or $25,000 example. I frankly don't think that these cars are worth that much money today just because of the transmission, but the fact that I can get up close and personal with this one, learn quite a bit along the way, essentially rebuilding the entire front end, and not having to worry about putting more miles on it because who cares, this thing's already bottomed out in terms of depreciation. That's why I made the exception. This is me in hindsight trying to justify spending $12,000 on a car that currently looks like this. So yeah, there you have it. Finances of a rebuild like this so far. I'll also be making a habit in the future of disclosing YouTube AdSense revenue for these videos. Of course, this is a young channel. If you're watching this when this video goes live, we aren't even eligible for YouTube AdSense yet. But once it starts rolling in, slowly but surely, hopefully, click on these videos, that would be super cool, then I'll be counting that revenue against the expenses for rebuilds like these. I want to look at this as sort of like one big ecosystem of ins and outs. If you're interested in doing something similar to this, can you leverage a YouTube channel to offset some of those costs? And if so, how much? Also, brand deals and other things work their ways in. I'm less inclined to disclose those just for contractual reasons we sign with other companies, but I will do my best to be as open and upfront about these projects and the money involved, because that's the real crux of all of this. What keeps folks from doing things like this ultimately is time and money. And well, I don't have a lot of time, but I do have some money saved up, and I've been wanting one of these for a while. So if you want to take this route here, well, how much money should you expect to spend on a rebuild? There you have it. I mean, so far, all in about 12 grand. Hopefully it doesn't go much higher than that, but you never really know, and I'm gonna bring you all along for the ride regardless of how this turns out. If it turns into a catastrophe, at least it'll be documented on YouTube, and maybe I can make a few cents back to offset the headache. That's the plan anyway. So in the next video, we will hopefully have most of the replacement parts here. They should only take about a week or two tops to arrive, but I expect we'll be doing a lot of deep cleaning before that. Not of the engine bay, although some of that will be done, but of the interior. The mold on the driver's side of the car is pretty rough, so rough in fact that I can't even sit in the car and feel safe. I feel like I'm huffing and puffing spores that are gonna, I don't know, give me like emphysema or something. So I'm going to be stripping the entire interior in the next video and deep cleaning it. We're gonna try to get it back to as close to factory as possible, get rid of all the scuffs, all the grime, all the goo, and again, all of the mold, and then we can actually sit in the car without fearing for our lives. So that's all I've planned for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I have no idea how long this video is going to be. I'm going to try to make these longer than what you'd expect on the main channel with the PC related content. I'm still learning as I'm going. So again, thanks for your patience, for coming along for the ride. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for your subscriptions. That's pretty much the only thing I'm looking forward to in this channel on the YouTube side of things is subscriptions. Again, I can't make money or anything yet, but your subscriptions go a long way. Thank you so much for that. Leave comment feedback below as well if you have any pointers, tips, tricks. I'm still kind of new to a lot of this like more hardcore rebuild stuff. And so those pointers are definitely welcomed, and consider sticking around for the next upload here in the next week or two. Again, my name's Greg. Thanks for building with me.